Well, the deal is done. The debt ceiling's been lifted. The government fully reopened. But have we really accomplished anything? Or has the proverbial can just been kicked a little further down the road? Some insight from Jill Schlesinger from MarketWatch.com coming up. Plus, how to protect your money against market volatility. Next on Your Money Matters, presented by the Presley Group.
There are plenty of people who believe a safe retirement is too good to be true, that there is no safe place for you to go with your money. Even your very own government will try to tax it right out from under your nose. But you've just tuned in to information that can save your retirement nest egg. It's Your Money Matters, featuring two of America's top retirement specialists, Christy Smith and Matt Kennedy with the Presley Group. They can teach you how to retire without all of the risks. Now, let's get back to Your Money Matters.
Good morning. Welcome to Your Money Matters. I'm Matt Kennedy. Christy Smith will be along shortly. I'm an agent with the Presley Group in Denham Springs, Louisiana. Christy Smith's the owner and founder of the Presley Group. And our slogan is financial security in any economy. We help you generate retirement income, and our strategies, fixed indexed annuities, let you share in market gains when the market is good and always protect you from losses when the market is bad. And boy, what a wild ride it's been for the last 2 weeks with all the talk of the budget deal, the debt ceiling. The market would skyrocket up and down, up and down. We'll talk more about protecting and preserving your retirement nest egg going forward. But right now, we want to turn to one of our great guests and experts, Jill Schlesinger. She's with MarketWatch.com. She covers the economy and markets for MarketWatch.com. I had a chance to speak with her earlier in the week and ask her about the debt deal and have we really accomplished anything?
Well, I think we did accomplish something, which is we avoided disaster. So that's an accomplishment in and of itself.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a little bit like you've got the arsonist fireman who puts out the fire he set, and so it's a little bit scary. And I agree that we're unfortunately looking at trying to do this exact same thing in just a couple of months. Perhaps there is some benefit in the fact that it happens so quickly, that the deadlines are so, really right in front of our faces, because maybe the sting of what has just happened and the hit to the fortunes of all of Congress will help us get to a deal more quickly and efficiently this next time.
Jill, this debt ceiling, explain what it is, explain what the debt ceiling means, and why we keep bumping into it seemingly every 6 to 8 months.
Well, the debt ceiling is a statutory limit that's set by Congress on the total amount of borrowing that the country can do. I think the big misnomer about the debt ceiling is that when people hear it like we're increasing the debt ceiling, they perceive that to mean that we're spending new money. Well, that's not what's happening.
Okay.
The government has already voted on a budget. And whether it's, a new budget or just a continuing resolution, lawmakers and the president have signed off on what we're going to spend for a given year. And all that we are doing with the debt ceiling is we are borrowing money to make good on the obligations that we've already made, right? So we've already decided what we're going to do. And now, at this point, the government says, well, if we took in more money throughout the year, we wouldn't have to borrow it. But since we didn't take in enough money, we've got to borrow some more money. And the reason why this has become a bit more of a political football match is that now the debt ceiling is being used to negotiate other concessions with the debt and the deficit. And I think that both sides have probably erred in their approach to using the debt ceiling because it's such a serious matter that you just don't want to mess with it. You can negotiate about other things, but not while the country's on the precipice of perhaps blowing through the debt ceiling and defaulting on our obligations.
You said we avoided disaster, and that's what you meant, right? Had we defaulted, the markets would have reacted very negatively, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, I've not run into one economist, one analyst, one trader who thought that this idea that going through the debt ceiling and not paying our bills on time would be anything but a disaster for the economy, for the markets, for the overall sort of stability of the United States. So I think that it's really important. I know that there's people get kind of sucked into the rhetoric and they say, hey, this politician said it wouldn't be so bad. But I got to tell you, I have not run into one legitimate economist who looked at the situation and said, no big deal. Everyone said it was somewhere between it could get really bad and total catastrophe.
Why not? CNN has an article this morning. Why not just scrap the debt ceiling? Why wouldn't we just do that and be done with it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tough. I mean, this is one of those rules that's been in effect for quite some time. It was a remnant of World War I era when the country was borrowing money to finance wars, and it was a way that Congress could basically help the Treasury Department manage the bills it had to pay without going back and building a brand new budget every single time. So with that said, there's probably maybe the efficacy of the debt ceiling has outlived its need, but we can barely agree on doing anything. I don't know if that's something realistic that's in our future.
Now, let's go through a timeline here. So by mid-December, this bipartisan panel, they've got to come up with real reforms. They don't have to adopt them by mid-December. They've got to come up with those reforms. What do those reforms consist of, Jill? What are you hearing is on the table to be looked at on the chopping block?
It's funny. I mean, everything's on the table, but what's quite interesting about this is I think that unlike, say, the framework that we had the last time we went through a debt ceiling where the committee was given the specific task of finding $1.5 trillion in budget savings over the next decade, the framework for the new committee seems a bit more vague, and frankly, the ambitions are more modest. So I don't see anything big coming of this, which may mean that, again, that's sort of delaying the process. Look, everyone's worried that the United States is borrowing too much money, right? That's like our main concern. And what I can tell you is sort of the weird good news that's completely underreported is that the United States deficit has been narrowing. We actually have good news on that front. So it's so weird. Right now, the budget deficit, the annual deficit, has shrunk to 3.8% of GDP. And we've now come close to, say, total debt at 3/4 of our economy. So that's really great. That's terrific, except there's a problem. In 20 years, the whole thing explodes again, and probably closer to 10 years. So reason why we're having these conversations is not so much about what's happening this second. The reason we're having these conversations is that we know that there is a looming crisis in this country. We know that baby boomers are going to be aging, putting tons of pressure on the healthcare system, on the Medicare system, on the Medicaid system. I mean, this is really, honest to goodness, about healthcare costs spiraling out of control and too many people needing those services at the same time. So until we deal with that reality, the near-term stuff's not what we're worried about. It's that longer-term deal that needs to get made.
Great insight there from Jill Schlesinger from MarketWatch.com and CBS Moneywatch. And I love what she said at the end. She nailed it there at the end. It's not the short term that's the real concern. Now, the media gets all hyperventilated about, we're reaching the debt ceiling, and Congress has lots of hand-wringing and wailing and gnashing of teeth. The real concern, though, is what legacy are we leaving for our kids and grandkids? What's their tax rate going to be if we don't rein in spending? Just how bad are the numbers? Well, coming up next, we'll hear from David Walker, former comptroller of the U.S. government, the former top accountant under 3 presidents, and he is sounding the alarm bell about our out-of-control spending. If you're concerned about the volatility in the market, if you're concerned about rising cost, call us at the Presley Group. Let's sit down for a free, no-obligation, one-on-one visit and talk about your portfolio. Talk about your plans, your hopes, your dreams. Let us show you how to safeguard your nest egg from any and all market downturns. And look, in this super low interest rate environment, if you're settling for 0.5% or 1% yield on CDs, call us. We can show you how our fixed indexed annuity plans can give you so much more potential while still offering you the same protection without putting your money at risk. Our number is 791-5773. That's 791-5773. 5773. You can always learn more online. Even contact us through our website, safemoneyplan.net. That's safemoneyplan.net. When we come back, we'll hear from David Walker, former top bean counter of the U.S. government, on just how out of control our spending has really become. That's next on Your Money Matters, presented by the Presley Group. Welcome back. It's Your Money Matters, presented by the Presley Group, offering financial security in any economy. I'm Matt Kennedy. Christy Smith, the owner and founder of the Presley Group, will be along shortly. At the Presley Group, it's about helping you safeguard your retirement nest egg. It's about helping you create guaranteed retirement income. But more than anything else, at the Presley Group, it's about certainty, knowing that a stock market downturn can't take away what you've worked so hard to earn. As always, we offer a free, no-obligation, complimentary sit-down visit just to find out how we can help you. Our number is 791-5773, 791-5773. Well, last segment we heard from Joel Schlesinger with CBS Moneywatch and MarketWatch.com talking about how in the short term, hey, it looks good, right? We got this debt ceiling mess all taken care of, and we've pushed things down the road to January and February. But as she said at the end, the real issue is the long-term debt we're racking up. It's what happens down the road that is most concerning. And no one is more concerned about that than David Walker. David is the former Comptroller General of the U.S. government. In other words, for a while, he was the nation's top bean counter, the top accountant in the country. He served under 3 administrations. He's recently published the book, Come Back America. And Christy and I had a chance to hear David Walker speak. Now, the speech you're going to hear was given about 3.5 years ago. So the numbers that you hear, you're going to hear some mind-boggling, eye-popping numbers, but they've gotten much worse since he gave this speech. But here's David Walker on where we stand in America today with our debt, our deficit, and our long-term unfunded mandates, and what it means for our country if we don't rein in the spending.
The simple truth is the financial condition of the United States is worse than advertised. We face large and growing structural deficits due primarily to rising health care costs and known demographic trends. This country is in a $53 trillion hole. That is the sum of the liabilities and the unfunded promises for Social Security and Medicare in current dollars. $53 trillion is $175,000 per person. It's $455,000 per household. Median household income in America is less than $50,000 a year. So if we don't reform our ways, it's like every American household having an additional mortgage of about 9.5 times their annual income, but unlike a typical mortgage, no house to serve as collateral. Washington has not learned the first rule of holes. When you're in a hole, stop digging. We are on an imprudent and unsustainable path, and our financial condition is deteriorating with the passage of time. This is nothing less than a fiscal time bomb. And in fact, there are 4 key parallels between the factors that resulted in our current mortgage subprime crisis and the factors that are contributing to what I believe could be a super subprime crisis associated with the federal government's finances. And I'll touch on those 4. First, a disconnect between those who benefit from current policies and practices and those who will pay the price and bear the risk. Secondly, inadequate transparency with regard to off-balance sheet obligations and other risk. Thirdly, the importance of maintaining lender confidence and adequate cash flow and the limitations of credit rating agencies. And fourthly, the lack of adequate oversight, risk management, and timely actions to prevent a crisis. Washington acts when one of 2 conditions exist, because after all, Washington is a lag indicator. It is a lag indicator because it is the most removed from the people. It acts when either A, it gets committed, inspired, inspirational leadership that is willing to make tough choices and work on a bipartisan basis and to speak the truth to the American people and to trust the American people. Or secondly, it acts when there's a crisis. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, we don't want the super subprime crisis because it would result in disruptions that would affect tens of millions of Americans in ways that they have never seen and they have never known in their life. What it's all about. What about our savings practices? The sad but simple truth is Americans are great at spending, but too many of us are lousy at saving. Too many American families are following the bad example of their federal government, spending more money than they make, charging credit cards, taking out home equity loans, mortgaging the future, and seeing the day in the not-too-distant future where they may not be able to make the minimum payment. Too many people are living for today rather than preparing for a better tomorrow. All of us can spend more than we make, including the federal government, for a while, but we can't do it forever without consequences, even the United States of America, which is now the world's largest debtor nation. We've gone from being the world's largest creditor nation in the 1970s to where this nation has become addicted to debt, running deficits, building up debt levels, good times or bad, wartime or peacetime. That is fundamentally imprudent. It's not that we're just not saving as a society. It's the result of that failure to save when we're running large deficits. This country is relying upon foreign lenders to an increasing extent to buy our debt and to fund our excess consumption and to fund our wars. Entitlement reform has to be an essential part of overall reform. Social Security is easy. It's a layup. I was a trustee of Social Security and Medicare for 5 years under President George Herbert Walker Bush and President Clinton. It's underfunded by $7 trillion. That's a lot of money, but in the scheme of things, we can deal with it. For Medicare, $34 trillion hole, of which the Medicare prescription drug benefit is $8. The Congress was already overpromising the American people $20 trillion for Medicare when the Medicare prescription drug bill was passed. At that time, Social Security was only in the hole about $5 trillion, and yet a new promise was made that added another $8 trillion in unfunded promises. You wonder why Washington has no credibility? Because on one hand, they say we need to reform Social Security, which we do, and we ought to do it sooner rather than later because it's the easy one, while at the same point in time adding new unfunded promises that exceeded the unfunded obligation of Social Security. If that's not a credibility gap, I don't know what is. Social Security reform will be easy. Medicare will be much tougher because it doesn't just involve money, it involves lives. Look, you can spend more money than you make for a while, but you can't do it forever without suffering adverse consequences. Today, the federal government spends at about 20.5% of GDP and taxes at about 18.4% of GDP. We can handle that gap, but the gap is expected to be over 5 times the current level within the next 20 years, absent reforms. We can't handle that. You know, it's one thing to want to try to keep taxes low, and we should all want to try to keep taxes low in order to maximize economic growth, maximize disposable income, maximize the competitive advantages compared to others, and maximize the amount of capital that's in the most productive sectors of the economy. At the same point in time, in the final analysis, you've got to have enough revenues to pay your bills and to deliver on the promises you intend to keep. And the federal government is short now, and it's going to get a lot shorter if we don't have reform. And the sooner we end up recognizing that reality, the sooner we start reforming programs, reprioritizing, constraining spending, the sooner we reform our tax system and healthcare systems, the sooner we can end up having the miracle of compounding work for us. Because remember what Albert Einstein said, the most powerful force on this earth is not nuclear energy, it is the power of compounding. And when you're a saver, an investor, the power of compounding works for you. When you're a debtor, and the United States is the world's largest debtor, the power of compounding works against you. And the clock is ticking. I, like all of you, am proud to be an American, but I'm very concerned about America's future. And I'm very concerned about the burdens that will be imposed on my children and grandchildren if we don't get some true leaders soon. We must learn from history. I started talking to you about the principles that our founders had for this country that we've strayed from. Let me remind you that the United States is not the longest-standing republic in the history of the world. That record belongs to Rome. And let me remind you that Rome fell for many reasons, but let me just mention 4 today. Decline in moral values and political stability at home. Overconfident and overextended militarily around the world. Fiscal irresponsibility by the central government and failure to control its borders. If these sound familiar, we must wake up, America, and we must make sure that we start making tough choices sooner rather than later in order to keep America great and in order to avoid Rome's fate. I believe that we can, we must, and ultimately that we will rise to meet these challenges. Why? Because we're Americans, and we're can-do people. And we faced many challenges in the past, and when we woke up, when we got serious, when we decided to get our act together, we have overcome every challenge. We can do it again if we, the people, decide to do it. And if we demand change, and if we hold our elected representatives accountable for their actions or their failure to act. We must make the political cost associated with doing nothing greater than the political cost of doing something.
Powerful, powerful words from David Walker. By the way, if you want to see more of David Walker, just go to YouTube, youtube.com, type in David Walker, comptroller, and you can see a lot of his speeches. Again, his latest book is called Come Back America. So why does all of this matter? I guess that's the big question. You say, Matt, I'm on a fixed income, I'm retired, or I'm heading toward retirement, I've saved up a good bit of money. What is all this debt and deficit and fiscal wrangling? What does this all mean to me? Well, Christy and I both feel like it means more uncertainty in the stock market, a much more volatile market, many more ups and downs. Could certainly mean higher taxes, higher copays for insurance and for Medicare supplements. All of these things we feel are going to become more expensive, and more importantly, we're going to see a much more volatile market. Do you have a plan to protect at least some of your savings from these volatile days? Do you have a plan that gives you a guaranteed retirement income? That's what we specialize in. That's what we can help you with at the Presley Group. So give us a call, 791-5773. Just like you, we're concerned about the future of America. We're concerned about passing along massive debts to our children. We're concerned about the viability of Medicare and Social Security for younger people. We want to help you plan, protect, and preserve. So give us a call, and let's talk about protecting and preserving your retirement dreams. 791-5773. That's 791-5773. Or visit our website, safemoneyplan.net. Back with more of Your Money Matters in just a moment on Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Welcome back to Your Money Matters. Matt Kennedy along with Christy Smith, the owner, founder, and president of the Presley Group. Christy on the road today. But Christy, I wanted to certainly grab you and let's take some time and talk about our last two guests. Jill Schlesinger from CBS Moneywatch, kind of laying out what this debt deal means. And she sounded the alarm at the end of the interview saying, but we just keep putting off the inevitable. And then David Walker saying we keep putting off the inevitable. Christy, at some point, we have got to wrap our arms around this debt and deficit, or we're going to cripple this country, aren't we?
We certainly are, Matt. You know, several years ago when you and I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with David Walker personally, we then began to sing this song that, you know, America is in trouble if we don't start doing things differently. And yet, years later, 3-4 years later, we're still saying the same thing. We have to do things different. This last government shutdown really concerned people, but I have to tell you, Matt, I didn't hear from the clients coming into my office the concern that you would think they would be feeling. I think everyone kind of just blew it off as, oh, they're going to come to a compromise sooner or later.
It's kind of like the little boy that cried wolf, and now people are not even listening, are they?
I don't believe they are, and then only to see that, you know, they did work things out, but only temporarily. They didn't really fix any of the problems, and that's what brings us to, you know, this discussion. How do we make a difference in our own personal lives, and how do we change things for us? You know, Social Security is a major form of income for people that are retired, but it cannot be the only form of income. And we at the Presley Group specialize in helping secure retirement dreams. There's plans available that eliminate market risk. Everybody, you know, thinks that you have to take a risk to reap a reward. And especially over the last year, we've seen great gains in the stock market, which makes it very easy for us to say, oh, it's ready to, you know, it's time for me to get back in, or I'm not going to get out because I've done too well. In fact, we need to start thinking differently. Maybe we need to start thinking, let's capitalize on that gain that we've seen over the last year. Let's be smart and realize things are not going to stay the way they are right now. There's no way possible that they can stay the way they are because our government's not coming up with any real solutions.
You know, Christy, I think you and I both agree that the real phrase of the day for 2014, or the word for 2014, is volatility. We saw tremendous volatility over the last couple of weeks in the market. Just on the hope that the government shutdown was over, we roar up 200 points. The next day, oh, the talks are falling apart. We drop 200. I think that's what we're going to see throughout 2014. So there are two groups of people I think we're speaking to right now, Christy. Those who have stayed in the market and seen great gains. And those of you who got out of the market after the 2008 crash and you've just settled for making next to nothing in CDs or money market. So, Christy, let's address those two groups of listeners. Let's first start with those of you you've ridden it out, you've stayed in the market, but you're close to retiring. Christy, how can we help them?
Well, Matt, we can help them with our fixed index annuity strategies that we use every day for people. You know, a fixed index annuity can really accomplish a lot of things, but the most important thing that it can accomplish is it can accomplish safety and security, which then brings peace of mind. You know, the value of being able to link your returns to the performance of the stock market without having any of the risk is tremendous. If you are scared of getting out of the stock market because you're afraid you're going to continue, that the market's going to continue to thrive and you're going to miss out on those gains, you don't have to be. Because in a fixed indexed annuity, we're going to link your return to the performance of those indexes, different stock indexes like the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, the Russell 2000. There's lots of different indexes we can choose depending on what company we use. But that's going to enable us to capture gains when the market is good. So if the markets continue to thrive, then you're not going to lose out by getting out and capturing the gains that you've made over the last year.
Let's expand on that because that's so powerful. So we're talking about a fixed indexed annuity. So the word annuity there, folks, just means that your money is being held and invested by a good, strong, solid insurance company. But what they do that's so unique is they don't put your money in the market. Like a variable annuity puts your money in the market, and you have to suffer losses and you enjoy the gains. But a fixed index annuity links your money to the market and you share in the gains. So here's an example. Stock market goes up 20%. More than likely, in that scenario, you would probably make about a 10% gain. You can expect to get about half of what the market does. But here's the beautiful thing. Once that gain is realized annually, It's locked into your account. And Christy, that's what our clients love the most. If they make a nice gain, that money's theirs. It's locked in. It's not a gain on paper. It's their money. And if the next year the stock market tanks, they don't lose any of that gain nor any of their principal. That's what's so powerful about what we do.
In addition to that, Matt, for those of you listening this morning that believe that the stock market may not continue to go up, I mean, let's face it, we do have major problems in this country. If the market doesn't continue to go up, we have great fixed indexed annuities that can provide a guaranteed rate of return for those of you who are saving for a retirement income. So let's say you're over 59 and a half, you've been working, you've done very well over the last year, but you know you're going to retire within the next 5 years. Now may be the perfect time for you to consider an in-service distribution, because that will allow you to take control of a portion of your existing 401k without any taxes, without jeopardizing your status with your current 401k.
That's right.
You can continue to participate, but you're able to take control of some of that money now. If the market should go down, if you're in a fixed indexed annuity strategy that has a guaranteed income rider and you're still working and saving, we may be able to lock in gains as much as 7% a year guaranteed. Now, you may ask yourself, how can the insurance company give me a 7% a year guarantee? And there's several companies out there that offer this. This is not a special or particular to one plan. But the way the insurance companies can do this is because they're planning on you keeping your money with them for a long period of time. This benefit is designed for those of you who are saving for retirement income. So, in fact, if the market goes down over the next 5 years, your last 5 years of working, we can still see the value of your retirement portfolio go up. And then, at the point in time you retire, we're able to flip on a switch and turn on what we call guaranteed retirement income.
And that's a check.
This is contractually guaranteed.
Yeah,
this is not an if.
That's a check that comes to you in the mail. Christy and I call it mailbox money. But
it's just like your Social Security check.
Yeah, and it's a great way to augment Social Security. And if you don't have a pension where you work, you can think of this as kind of a do-it-yourself pension where you set up a plan that pays you a guaranteed retirement income. Now, the phrase Christy used there earlier was in-service distribution. So you might want to check with your HR department on Monday and ask them, if you're over 59 and a half, now if you're not over 59 and a half, you can't do this, but if you're over 59 and a half years of age, most companies allow you to do an in-service distribution, and you pull money out of your 401k, it's transferred with no tax implications into an IRA that we can help set up for you so that you know you're protected from market losses, or like Christy, like you were saying, you can get that guaranteed retirement income. So you just have to find out, can I do an in-service distribution? If you can, let us help protect your savings as you near retirement.
This will help you secure your retirement, Matt. I mean, Jill and David Walker are spreading our message. We are in a time of uncertainty.
We are.
And it is time for us to accept personal responsibility. We don't want to have to rely on just a Social Security check as our sole source of income when we retire. This is creating our own personal pension plan. We all need to save for retirement. We can't accept the fact that the government is responsible for our retirement money without us having some kind of control of that.
That's right.
We want to be in control of some of our money. We can't control the decisions that are made in Washington. We can't control that they shut the government down for 2 weeks and really didn't make any changes. But what we can control is our own future. We can control how we have our money invested, and we can control whether or not we're willing to accept risk in our portfolio, especially when there doesn't have to be any.
To contact us, it's always a free, no-obligation appointment to sit down and talk about how we can help you and explain more about our plans and our strategies that we use to safeguard your retirement. Our number is 791-5773. Give us a call. We'll set up a free one-on-one consultation. 791-5773. Of course, you can always reach us online. You can even set up an appointment online at safemoneyplan.com. safemoneyplan.net, safemoneyplan.net. Okay, Christy, I said there are two groups of people we're probably talking to. Those who are, like you said, are still working but might want to take control of some of their money, or those of you who in IRAs or after-tax accounts, you've stayed in the market. Now you've gotten back to where you're even. Maybe you want to take some of that off the table. But, Christy, let's talk to those people who probably are already retired. And they got out of the market in 08 and 09. They were rightfully concerned. And so they went to safe money. They went to the bank and bought CDs. And now those CDs are coming up for renewal. And they're finding out that their renewal rate might be 1%. What can we do for them?
Matt, there's really a lot of things we can do for them. And when I think about this group of people, I have a picture in my mind of Jim Cramer, back in the meltdown saying, get out. Do you remember that day where he said, get out?
You know what he said? I remember exactly. He said, if you need your money to live on, stay out of the stock market. That's what he said.
And think about how many of those people actually did listen to him and pull out. And, in fact, they've not gone back in. So they have lost a tremendous amount of money that's going to be very difficult for them to ever recover. They're hovering in CDs, money markets, just hoping and praying that interest rates are going to rise. But let's face it, it's going to be a long time before we see interest rates back to where they were, 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Those people have really suffered the most because they haven't come back. Okay?
And guess what? And now they're concerned, not to interrupt you, but now they're concerned that if they tiptoe back into the stock market now with the S&P at an all-time high, they may have timed it wrong is the concern, right?
That's exactly right. So a fixed index annuity strategy may be the perfect thing for them because a fixed index annuity strategy allows them to participate in market gains and share with market gains without actually taking the risk of being in the market. Now, a lot of our CD clients will come to us and say, I didn't think that you could help me because I always thought that annuities were just long-term products, and I can't really put my money into something for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
There are actually fixed indexed annuity strategies that are designed for more short-term use, and there's some great fixed indexed annuity strategies for those of you who are saving, really not planning on spending that money, but have it for an emergency or, a worst-case scenario. But your intentions really are to leave it to the family. We have got some awesome fixed index annuity strategies that can help that money grow without any risk.
Let me give you one example right now. There's a company that we use called Athene. Full disclosure here, they're called Athene Insurance Company. They have a 5-year plan. And the thing I love about it is, Christy, if you chose only fixed interest, the company right now is paying 2.1%. Not bad compared to a lot of CDs and things out there. But so what a lot of people do who are looking for something shorter term is we may link half of their money to the stock market, participating in the S&P gains, but always protected. And maybe they'll look for the other half to earn some fixed interest. That way you're still making money, but you've got so much more potential. We have all kinds of plans, but the key thing to remember, right, Christy? None of our plans ever put your principal at risk, and that's the real key.
That is absolutely the real key. And, Matt, a big misconception for our CD or our savings clients is that they believe that if they use a fixed indexed annuity, that they don't have any access to their money. And a lot of our CD clients will live on their interest. And in fact, in our fixed indexed annuities, most of them will allow us to go in and access up to 10% of either the full amount of the contract or 10% of what you put in as penalty-free withdrawal. So if you're living on the interest, you can still do that.
To give us a call to learn more, 791-5773. That's 791-5773. Christy, I know you've got to run. I just thought it was so important to remind people that in a world loaded with uncertainty, we count on rock-solid, strong insurance companies to give us contractual guarantees. And what that gives you is certainty. Certainty that you can't lose your money. Certainty that your annual gains are locked in. Certainty that you've got that guaranteed retirement income. And I think, Christy, more and more people are looking for certainty. We've never been busier. You've done this 16 years. I've been with you 5.5. I know in the 5.5 years I've been there, we've never been busier. And I think it's a testament to what people are looking for.
Well, and also, Matt, too, I think that the insurance companies have developed such awesome products that people are really starting to learn that the annuity word is not always a bad thing.
Again, our number is 791-5773. At the Presley Group, you'll find someone who will sit and listen. You know, a lot of financial people you sit down with, they just want to talk, and tell you what they want to sell you. At the Presley Group, Christy and I stop and listen to what you need and what you are hoping for and desiring. So give us a call for that free, no-obligation consultation at 791-5773 or visit us online at safemoneyplan.net. More of Your Money Matters coming up in just a moment. Final segment here of Your Money Matters. I want to turn back to one of our experts, Bob Powell from MarketWatch.com, as we talk about how you plan and protect and preserve your retirement. Bob Powell recently wrote an article in MarketWatch.com, entitled, "This is No Market for Old Investors." I had a chance to speak with him about that a short time ago. If you like the death-defying roller coaster rides, then what's going on right now in stocks and bonds in the stock and bond markets probably suits you fine, writes Robert Powell. But he's saying this is no market for old investors. Bob, take us through your column where you talk about this market and what it means for people who are nearing retirement or already retired.
Sure. I mean, what happens typically when markets start to get volatile as they are now, when you see the stock drop 200 points in a day, or when you see the 10-year U.S. Treasury rising upwards toward 3%, is people start to get nervous, and they begin to wonder whether they should bail out of stocks or sell their bonds. And so what we proposed to do in this column was to give people a chance to sort of think about what they're doing before they do it, and to make sure that before they do anything, it's not rashly, that it's in line with what their designed plan was. So the first thing that we talk to people about is this notion that if you have a written financial plan and you have what's called an investment policy statement in place, then those two things would likely prevent sleepless nights when markets tumble or bonds rise. And that, the key to having an investment plan, an investment portfolio, is that, when you're building an optimal portfolio designed for the long run, it means never having to freak out when there's a 200-point drop in the stock market. Right.
Can we talk specifically about bonds and both bond funds? Some people may be asking, why has that moved so much? It has to do with interest rates, right?
Well, it does. So right now, what we know is that the Fed has been pumping money into the economy through its QE program, and that they have suggested that they will begin to taper down that program in the coming months, and everyone is speculating when that might be. So the moment that happens, I think there will be a couple things that could go on. One is that stocks might fall, but also in anticipation of the notion that the Feds will stop buying bonds, is that rates will rise because of that. How much, we don't know because they're inflated and it's hard to sort of estimate. But what we know is that, the economy is improving, unemployment rate is coming down a little bit, and all those things were the things that the Fed said needed to happen before they stopped tapering its stimulus program. So obviously when the economy starts to improve, you might see signs of inflation, and inflation, obviously has an effect on bonds because as rates rise, as inflation rises, so too will bond yields.
So with the person who is saving for retirement but getting close, you have some guidance for them.
That's right. So, the thing obviously, if you don't have a financial plan, get one. If you don't have an investment policy statement, put that in place. The investment policy statement will do a couple things. One is that it will dictate what your asset allocation should be. How much should you have in stocks? How much should you have in bonds? And then more importantly, within how much you have in stocks and within how much you have in bonds, are you well diversified? Because the notion is that if you're well diversified, when one asset goes up, the other might go down, and when one goes down, the other might go up. So if you're well diversified, you'll be able to ride out these bumps. Obviously, what happened in the past couple of days is it wasn't across the board, right? What we're watching is not just that one type of stock. Not all stocks are going down. One kind of stock is going down, and another kind of stock is going up. So if you're well diversified, you can ride these kinds of storms out. So that's the important part about having an investment policy statement. The other is assuming that you have the right asset allocation, that you're properly diversified, you should be rebalancing your portfolio. And if you're close to retirement, now might be a time to look at your portfolio and rebalance it. Sell your winners and reinvest the difference in your losers. Or when you're selling your winners, maybe take some money out of the market, set it aside so that you have living expenses for the next 6 to 12 months. And that way, what you'll be doing is reducing your exposure to the market, making sure that you have enough money set aside to pay for your living expenses, and you'll be able to sleep at night if you do those kinds of things.
And you write, if you're in retirement, how can you survive another downturn? Talk about for those who are already retired, who are certainly nervous about this volatility.
Well, again, the thing about surviving these kinds of downturns when you're in retirement is ultimately you want to reduce your exposure to risky assets, but you don't want to reduce it so much so that you don't have an opportunity to, so that if you have 30 years in retirement, that you don't have any assets that are keeping pace with inflation. So it's a very delicate balance. But the thing that you don't want to do is to put at risk your standard of living in the present, because you may need some of that money to live on. So the thing is, you can't bet the ranch on stocks, and now, more than ever, those of us who have witnessed the year 2000, the year 2008, and the possibility of what could happen if the Fed starts tapering, is you don't want to put the money that you need, for your housing, for your food, for your transportation, for your, the necessities, the necessary expenses in retirement at risk in the stock market.
Robert Powell is the editor of Retirement Weekly, published by MarketWatch. You can find out more at marketwatch.com. And you've long preached, I guess that's the right word, Bob, you've long preached that when you're in retirement, make sure you've got that stable platform beneath you with some sort of fixed income portfolio as well, right?
That's right. So, one of the things that people, there's a new line of thinking that says what you want to do is to create a floor for your standard of living. And that floor could be made up of any kind of investment that you think will, make sure that you have income to support those expenses.
Bob Powell from MarketWatch. And speaking of that floor, that income floor, that's what we can help you with. Those assets that you don't want at market risk. Let's talk about helping you protect and preserve your retirement nest egg. Give us a call for that free, no-obligation appointment at 791-5773. And as always, visit us online anytime, safemoneyplan.net. That's safemoneyplan.net. God bless. We'll see you again here next weekend on Your Money Matters.